Everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is back to school. We used a lot of the survey cards and stuff that we got from the summit to come up with the webinar for today. So,
we got a lot of great feedback back from you guys. Everybody who attended the summit had a lot of questions. A lot more clarification could be offered by us, and hopefully this webinar will shed some light on some of the more basic things you can use OnBase for. All right, presenting today is myself, Andy Butita, and Jen Hemquinet. Say hi, Jen.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
As always, the audience is muted. You can type chat questions into the chat box on the screen. We'll answer questions at the end of the webinar, and we'll have a link to a survey to everyone who attended. And please complete that so we can make our next webinar even better and more amazing and awesomer. We also have a link to our previous webinars. That's a kind of a big and hairy URL, but if you want to, we've got our previous webinars listed on our web page at that URL. You can go back and watch any of the other ones that we've recorded, because they're just that awesome. So today we're going to be looking at some OnBase basics. I've split them up into three areas. The OnBase savings and loan, which is the umbrella term that I'm covering, storing and retrieving documents within OnBase. How you get documents in, how you get documents out, how you can find documents, and some of the basic processing you can do on those documents. Through the Looking Glass is our section on basic inspection of your OnBase system using the built-in reporting features. This doesn't cover anything in report services, so anybody who has OnBase should be able to do these reports. And then finally, we had a lot of people ask about the Unity client. So I've got a special section here with Jen. She's going to demo a lot of the features and differences in the Unity client in our Approaching Unity section. We'll show you how to get started with the Unity client. So when Hyland talks about OnBase, they've kind of divided it up into these 6 distinct areas of capture, process, access, integrate, measure, and store. And that's how OnBase relates to your documents and your business. And these do actually have some bearing on our webinar today. The OnBase savings and loan section will cover capture, process, access, and store, mostly capture, access, and store. A little bit of processing in there when we talk about dip and things like that. You can do some basic measurement of your OnBase system and your business, coinciding to your business, through the Looking Glass look at the built-in reports. And then integration, Unity client is probably Hyland's biggest push for integration in OnBase, excuse me, in recent years.
Well, and you also, in a lot of cases, you integrate with, a big one these days is your Microsoft products like Word, Excel,
Absolutely.
and Outlook. So that's the hugest, or the largest integration that most of our customers have, and that allows you to capture, access, and store documents as well. So
absolutely,
it's the many pieces of this puzzle in that one application. So.
Absolutely. Most folks asked about Unity, so we're going to talk about Unity in our third section. But absolutely, the Office integration and the Outlook integration deserves mention as well. We'll probably cover that in a later webinar. So anyway, on with the show. OnBase savings and loan, storing and retrieving documents with OnBase. This section covers, again, the capture, process, access, store, I don't know what you call them, milestones, major pillars in the OnBase experience. When we talk about storing documents in OnBase, we usually just think of, paper documents or PDFs and some e-forms maybe. You recreate your your most commonly used forms in an electronic manner using Unity forms or electronic forms to HTML forms. But OnBase actually can store a much larger variety of data, quite a lot of data, bulk data in the form of scanned in, boxed records, digital information from XML formats, PDFs, cold imports from mainframes, HL7 messages for the medical community, and business communications through fax and email archiving. You can store a lot of data in an OnBase system, and we're going to show you some of the simplest ways of getting information into OnBase and then how to find it once it's there. So we're going to start with some common methods of ingestion, which is the act of bringing documents into OnBase. We have, of course, single import, which comes free with every copy of OnBase. No modules needed to buy for that. Basically, it's a good way to test your system and make sure importing is working. We've got the basics of scanning and sweeping, scanning in with a scanner or sweeping a directory of already scanned files or even electronic files. It's a good medium way to get, medium throughput way to get documents into your system. DIP and XML DIP is a good automated way to bring documents into the system and index them with additional information. It's a great way to combine a third-party system or some other information enterprise content management system with OnBase. We're going to talk about a little bit about the cold processor and its PDF input filter. PDF import filter. This allows you to bring in large text documents and split them out into logical reports of maybe a few to a few hundred pages in size from text files that are thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages long. It's a pretty powerful module. And then also the directory import processor. If you've got a document input processor like a digitization process that already makes, saves files out to a file share, there's metadata within the structure of that file share, like accounting documents always go into the accounting folder, and HR documents always go into the HR folder, and then maybe AP is in your, within your accounting folder, and then you've got invoices elsewhere. Directory import processor can help there in reading some of the structure of that directory structure and turning that into keywords and document types. And then, of course, there is the much-loved virtual print driver, which allows you to print any file, any program that can print in Windows. You can take an image of it and put it in OnBase, which is an extremely powerful feature, and we've got a lot of folks using virtual print driver just for that fact, just to kind of bridge that gap where there's no other really convenient way to get a file or get a document into OnBase. Virtual print driver can close that gap.
Or if you really want your system to be mostly images, this can be used in a lot of cases where people don't want Word documents in their system. They want them all to be images, or they're appending pages to existing image files. Absolutely. They can do it this way. Another thing I wanted to mention here is that we did talk about the Microsoft products. Those are also, those integrations also allow you to save files to OnBase. So that's another way you could bring documents into OnBase.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with single import. Real basic. It exists in all the major clients. It's always in a different place, according to the client. There's a little tiny button in the thick client. It's under the document menu in the web client, and it's the upload button in the Unity client. No matter what you do, the interface is pretty much the same. You have 3 drop-downs, a browse, file browse dialog, and you can pick your doc type. Pick your doc type, your file type, your import file type, doc date. Any keywords that apply to that document type appear below it. Pretty much the same. It's a very simple system. Great for getting a single file into OnBase that it happens to be there, and you have no really good way of getting it into the system otherwise. Scanning, though, is probably the primary way you're going to get documents into OnBase. The two major clients you're going to scan in are going to be the thick client and the Unity client. There are other ways to scan into OnBase in high volumes even, but generally the major way you're going to scan large amounts of documents in OnBase are going to be in thick client or Unity client. They're in two different locations here. You have batch scanning in the Unity client and the scan index page under processing in the thick client. The interface is pretty similar with both clients. You have your scan queues on the left. Open up you have your various scan queues, awaiting index, fully indexed, committed, uncommitted on the left. Your scan queues themselves show up on the right. It looks pretty much the same no matter what client you're in. Again, scan queues on the left, metadata on the right. Pretty simple there. Now, you can actually scan from the web client. I don't think a lot of people know that. It's not the fastest thing in the world, and it's really not recommended if you've got customers over long distances that need to scan. That's a job much better handled by the disconnected scanning client. But if you have some documents that you need to get scanned in and you've only got web clients left over, it can work in a pinch.
Yeah, and I believe that there is a separate license for that, for the web scanning, that would need to be purchased in order to do that.
So that's scanning. Sweeping. Sweeping is similar. In the Unity client, it's under the same capture tab as batch scanning. The sweep option, do I have it in there? Yeah. In the thick client, it's a little bit different. You actually go into a scan queue and you right-click, and then you have the sweep directory option in your right-click menu. In Unity, it's a little easier to find as it's in that capture tab under batch scanning. Regardless, the dialogues you're presented with are pretty much the same once the webinar catches up here. There you go. Yeah, they're basically the same thing. Sweep a directory or sweep a single file, and then put in the directory or the file name, add your options, delete them after sweeping, sweep images only, etc. Do some simple rotation. If you know everything that went in there, got scanned in landscape by accident.
And if these are set already in your scan queue settings, they'll show up, and the directory will show up filled in for you already.
That's handy. Very handy.
If you're always sweeping from the same place, it's a good idea to put that in your scan queue configuration. That way nobody has to change it, and it's always, yep. And then you can automate that process using the schedule.
All right, so now we get into some of the more fun things. DIP is one of the more powerful document ingestion systems in OnBase. It's a separately licensed module. It allows you to bring in large numbers of images and then define, using a DIP index file, what constitutes a document, what constitutes a page of a document, what keywords to extract from that index file, what keywords to extract from the file name. It's a very, very powerful ingestion system, and it can work with either CSV style, comma-separated text files for your index file, or you can actually make a tagged DIP custom index file. If you've got a system where you know you're going to be exporting files from the system and it exports them in such a manner, you can set up a tagged DIP import to grab those index files, the indexing information, and not have to index them a second time.
The one thing to keep in mind with the DIP and the cold and stuff, currently they can only be done through the thick client. So these processing modules have not been added to Unity, and they may be in the future, but they are currently still ran through the thick client and configured in the configuration module.
Absolutely. They can still be scheduled, but yeah, anticipate having a thick client set up somewhere to do these things if you're going to automate them.
Yeah, and you can have a thick client running as a service too, also, to do that.
Mm-hmm. So, XML DIP and the XML tag import processor, or TIP, kind of a separate beast. They require a separate license, but instead you can use an XML file for your index file, which at first blush you might think, well, that's not really very useful. However, it works really well with like teleforms like products. to bring in your indexing data and not have to index them a second time. And, you can be much more expressive in an XML file than you can with even with a tagged DIP file. It still gets a little bit arcane in defining your delimiters and stuff. XML file, you can be a little more verbose. You can capture a little more information with it. But it essentially fills the same function as DIP. TIP is a little different. It imports pure XML documents, which normally are not very human readable. I mean, you can pick through one and figure out what it's trying to say, but the tag import processor allows you to bring in an XML file and its associated style sheet, so it actually displays nicely. And again, that one works really well with like teleforms and other XML-based form products. Again, they are configured and run in OnBase config in the thick client. So yeah, if you want to automate them, expect to have a thick client as a service set up somewhere on a box somewhere. Next up we have cold. I don't have a ton of experience with cold. Used mainly for bringing in very large text files from mainframe systems. Financial, insurance industries, where you have large reports.
Some people use them for their invoices if they're all printed in one big file type format or an ASCII text file. We'll bring those in for people. And basically what cold does is allows that big report, or so say you have 20 pages of invoice files, you can parse those out into 20 separate invoices for 20 separate customers. So then when you go to search for them, they will be indexed by values that are, they can be indexed by values that are already on those text documents. So basically you tell it what column and what row each of these values are in, and then when it brings in the document, it uses that information to populate the keywords. Now, PDF input filter is done off the same premise, but that is done using visual. It's called visual cold, and it allows you to drag and drop boxes around the data that you want to bring in. So if you say you have a PDF file that is, hundreds of insurance policies for hundreds of your insurers, you can bring those in and divide them, parse them out, just like cold parses text files, parse them out and populate the keywords, and then you have all the documents individually. So it's actually great now that a lot of people are going to PDF. A lot of people are using that to bring in large quantities of PDF documents and parse them out automatically, and then you don't have to parse them out on the back end as 20 files. You bring in one file and the system automatically makes it into 20 files.
Very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Again, configured in OnBase config and run in the thick client.
Cold PDF, or the input filter, PDF input filter is actually, you use the thick client to configure it.
Oh, really? You don't configure it in config?
No.
Oh, all right. Good to know. Good to know. So directory import processor, pretty cool if you've already got an established digitization system in place where you have people already scanning to a file share, and there are a defined directory structure for the files your users are saving out. The directory import processor, or DRIP, can auto-index those files based on where they appear in the directory structure, and then based on pieces of the file name as well. So if you always have, an invoice that shows up in the invoices folder, it will know. You can configure it to be an AP invoice. The file name will always start with the invoice date, regardless of the scan date. The file name will have the invoice date on it, so you can set that as a keyword in OnBase. And then the vendor for the invoice will always be after a dash in the file name. So you can automatically index those two pieces of information along with the document type, just because of where this file appears in your directory structure. That your users or your automated web process or something is already dropping these files in automatically, which is fantastically useful if you've got a shared file server kind of architecture. You've already got a process in place that works for you. You don't really want to change it. That's fine. OnBase can adapt using the directory import processor. Again, configured in OnBase config and runs in the thick client. All right, everybody's favorite, virtual print driver. Virtual print driver allows printing to a TIFF from any Windows application. That sounds pretty basic, but if you think about it for a second, any application that can print can make a TIFF that goes straight into OnBase. Kind of a big deal. That means web browser, your PDF reader, Photoshop, a CAD program, your old ECM system, if it can print, it can go into OnBase. Any electronic invoicing system, your top fax system, you can virtual print right into OnBase if you want. There are fax solutions, but if you want, you can virtual print it right into OnBase. It's fantastic for drawing together and homogenizing all of your documents across your enterprise into one document type in OnBase. And they come in as image documents, as Jen mentioned. And image documents are fantastic in OnBase. You get all the features. You get redactions, revisions, editing of them, reordering pages. OCR, IDLE works with them. Signatures, burning in signatures, medical signature deficiencies all work with image documents.
Well, and another thing to keep in mind is that virtual print driver always was something you had to use the thick client for. That is no longer the case. You can actually use the web client. If you are a web client customer, you can use virtual print driver or the listener for virtual print driver in the web client now, which is new with 13. And you can also set it up for your Unity clients to use the virtual print listener. So you don't just have to be a thick client shop to use virtual print anymore. I know I have one customer that was very excited to see it finally go to the web because they are primarily web shop and they wanted to start using virtual print drivers. So that functionality is finally there, which is great.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was originally a thick client only kind of feature. Mm-hmm. But 13 has made that much more accessible.
Yes.
Much more accessible. So we're going to move on then to the second part of OnBase Savings and Loan, which is making a withdrawal. How to retrieve documents in OnBase. I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes. I know how to retrieve documents in OnBase. I do it all the time. We'll just cover some basics, and you go get a cup of coffee if you've already done this before. We're going to cover basic retrieval with the document retrieval pane. Don't worry, we won't spend an hour on it. And then we're going to go over custom queries, and Jen's going to demo some really interesting custom queries and how easy it is to get started with custom queries in OnBase. They can really simplify your life as an end user and your sysadmin's life as a database administrator.
Yeah, and in some cases, if you want, you can set up your users' workstations to open directly to custom queries. So then they have those accessible to them, and they don't really have to use the retrieval window that may have too many options that they need to select to get the information that they're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. If you set custom queries as the default home screen in any of the clients, it turns OnBase kind of into a kiosk, just kind of a retrieval kiosk. And your users can really quickly get the information they're looking for, which is the entire point of having an electronic content management system. So let's get started. Document retrieval. There it is. We know this pane. We love this pane. The doc retrieval pane. Everybody knows that in order to get your keywords to show up, you need to pick a document type, right? But a lot of people don't understand the importance of your document type groups up here. Because if you have these arranged in a logical sense, a lot of people just group them by department. But if you can make as many document type groups as you want, if you have specific groups of users that only work with certain document types, you're totally free to make user-specific document type groups. Because as soon as you pick a document type from the document type groups, your list of document types drops dramatically, making it much faster to find what you're looking for when you finally do select, a document type from this list. It's a good tip that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of. I've seen in most of our customer systems, document type groups generally go by department, but you're totally free to make like user specific or user group specific, department specific document type groups.
It all totally depends on your business and how
Absolutely.
your users access their files.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have complaints from your users that it's taking too long to find documents, and you go and you watch them use Retrieval, and they're scrolling through list after list after list of documents, it's a big clue that, hey, maybe it's time to get them to narrow their search. And using document type groups is a good start. Obviously, putting in date ranges and words is another good idea. And we'll discuss custom queries here. That's another really good way to limit what your users are searching for. Using custom queries can help simplify complex document searches. If you've got documents with a lot of keywords, and you should have documents with a lot of keywords, I'll touch on that in a minute, finding them can get a little difficult with the retrieval pane. We saw 3 keywords on our retrieval pane there, but you could have documents with 10, 20, 30
Well, and if you have
keywords.
A group of users that, he was showing you the document type group, and maybe they do a search and there's 2 document types in one document type group and 3 in another and 3 in another, you can create a custom query that accesses all 5 or 7 of those document types with one query, and then they don't have to try to select all those document types in a retrieval window to get the same information that they're looking for.
Very true. Definitely makes frequent complex queries better. You can, for example, you can set like a moving target 30-day doc query for a custom query, and that will reduce the load on your database server exponentially if you have a lot of documents in your system and your users are running unrestricted queries, or not putting in for the last year when they really only need a doc from last week. That'll help.
Well, and the other thing is also you can use the date ranges in your, the users can make the date ranges change for them also, so that that's automatically populated. But if they don't do that, this way you're essentially doing it for them.
True, yeah, you can have default values in there. Yeah, that's a good way to lower the load on your database server. And then you can also use HTML custom queries, which are basically e-forms that can run queries, any custom query that you can configure in OnBase, and it provides a nicer interface for doc retrieval. And not just nicer like shinier or more modern, I mean those are nice, but like more convenient, more usable sometimes, depending on your users. And I just want to touch really briefly here on the importance of keywords. We're gonna talk about custom queries in just a sec. Jen's gonna demo this. I know you're all just waiting with bated breath to see this demo, but I really want to touch on the importance of having keywords and having the right keywords on your documents. This is something that we usually cover in a discovery phase. What data do you need to know about your documents? Having the right keywords makes your key data more searchable. If you don't have a full text license, by the way, we have a discount on that. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you don't have full text search, you have to expose data on the document in your keywords, or you can't search for them. You can't search for that data. If you have a user that's generating reports, the only way you know is by their user name. But if you try and do a search for their actual name or maybe their internal email address, you're not going to find them unless you have those things stored on the document as keywords. So you can make your key document data accessible. You can also store metadata, which is all the rage right now with the NSA phone tapping and internet dragnet of grabbing metadata. But this is really important. This is data about your documents, data about data.
Well, and the big thing is to make sure that these keywords are to help people get the documents out in the most convenient and efficient manner. So if the keyword is not very specific or could have a large number of stuff put into it and have a broad range of items that it entails, that might not be the best place for a keyword.
Yes.
But if it's maybe department is your keyword, that could be very helpful in some cases if you're looking for maybe meeting minutes for a certain department.
Yes, I will.
And having a date range, you know, having the date that meeting happened will be very important.
Absolutely. Dates beyond just the document date.
Mm-hmm.
The metadata helps you categorize your documents beyond just document type. You know, you might have AP invoices, but you've got service invoices and product invoices and, you know, all different kinds of invoices. They let you classify documents in a more granular fashion than document type, you know, just straight document type. And you can use keywords to signify relationships between documents. You can relate two documents by an identical keyword. And then we use this all the time when we build workflows for our customers. You can add processing state into your keywords, and your workflows will look at the processing state on the document and you know, make a decision based on that keyword. And in retrieving documents, like Jen said, it helps you narrow your search. You can find documents by their category and by subcategory then, and you can search via that metadata that you've stored on the document. You can search by your invoice type. You can search by your department keyword. Let me demonstrate with a quick little slide that I threw together. I have a tale of two documents. These are invoices. They're from Scissors Plus. They're for $200, and they're unpaid. We think we've pretty much got everything covered there. So that we make this as our document type. It's got our three keywords on here. It's a doc type invoice. It has a vendor keyword. It has an amount, an amount keyword, and a paid keyword, which will be either true or false if it's been paid or not paid. So this is great because we can type in invoice Scissors Plus less, you know, over $100. Hey, we found our document. That's great. We do invoice Scissors Plus unpaid invoices. Great, our document comes up. Now, what if we want to search for unpaid invoices from Madeline, our invoice approval manager? Well, now we can't find this document because Madeline's name is not in a keyword on this document. So now we have to pull up all of our unpaid invoices, all 30 of our invoices, through them manually, and now we're right back to paper files. We're no better off than when we started. So the importance of keywords in this case, like again, looking for a service invoice, we're not going to find it. We don't have a services keyword or an invoice type keyword. Sometimes, and a lot of times, more keywords are better. The more data you can store with a document, the better. Again, it goes back to, does it work for your business? Obviously, you don't want a MISC keyword that holds just random data. You want all of the things that you think you might be looking for in an invoice. Your type of invoice is a service invoice, a product invoice. Your order date, which is different than when it was scanned in OnBase, the document date. Who the order was placed by, which is different than who scanned the order in, which would be the username on the document. The department that it's for, the approval manager, whether it was approved or not, etc., and so on. You can have a lot of detail.
Well, and that's what it comes
keywords.
When it comes down to it, and when you're creating these new document types and stuff, it's important to talk to the users and find out, okay, so when you look for these documents, how do you search for them?
Exactly.
You know, if nobody ever cares what department it is, and they never ever want to search on that department, maybe that keyword is not applicable, and maybe it's not necessary in this situation.
On the flip side, what if a year down the line, your invoice manager wants to do a report by department, and you don't have a department keyword? Well, now, wouldn't it have made sense to be recording the department that this invoice was for this whole time? So it's a balancing act, and it really takes. That's why we always emphasize discovery, because in order to find out exactly how much information you need to store with your documents, you've got to talk to people. You have to talk to your end users. You have to talk to your department managers. You have to talk to the people who work with the documents, find out exactly what you need to know about these documents, and then translate it into keywords. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox about keywords, and Jen is going to demo custom queries to you guys.
All right.
Take it away, Jen. She even has a song and dance, I think.
Not today. Not feeling my dancing spirit.
No?
No.
Well, why ever not? I mean, it's a balmy 40 degrees out and overcast. It's such a great day.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm not ready for winter. All right, so like we talked about, these are setup and configuration. And there are many different kinds of queries you can have. We can base them off of several different things. So I'm going to go ahead and I created one yesterday. We'll call it demo here. And we're just going to go through a little bit of what you can do here. So you can do it by document type, or you can do it by document type group. So as I was saying earlier, if these document types are in several document type groups, maybe by document type would make more sense. Mm-hmm. We can do it by folders. You can do it by keyword. You can write a custom query or a custom SQL query that pings the database and pulls back exactly what you are looking for. There might be cases where that is important maybe for a one-time project when you're looking for a certain specific document set.
Good for finding errant documents as well. Mm-hmm. If you have some documents that somehow got out of band, out of one of your workflow queues, or they're missing, quote unquote. I love it when documents go missing in OnBase. Usually mm-hmm. means they're missing a keyword or a data field or something. Mm-hmm. It's a great way. The SQL query is a great way to find those.
Yeah, and sometimes when your queries are based off other information that are not necessarily keywords or date ranges, you may need to use a SQL query. Mm-hmm. And if you're, which is very helpful, or trying to pull some information back from maybe a third-party system or something. Mm-hmm. But you'll see this full text down here. So I'm going to kind of bring something else into the mix with my custom query. So you can actually do the custom queries, but we were talking about full text searching. And IDLE, full text search, is a product from Hyland that allows you to actually type something in the full text search box and pull up documents that might have that information. So, for example, if you have meeting minutes.
A key, pull up documents that have that information on the document,
but not a keyword. Yeah. So, for example, say you have meeting minutes, and in those meetings, somebody talked about dress code, for example, and you want to find out what meeting they talked about dress code and what was decided upon, you could type in dress code to pull up that information. Now, obviously that meeting covered a lot of things, so you probably want to have a keyword that had dress code in it.
Right.
So you can use your text search. Well, the big thing that, well, first of all, if you attended our summit, up until December 10th, we are giving a 25% off of the full text indexing or IDLE module for OnBase if you would like to purchase that and you attended our summit.
That's right. The perks keep on rolling. You guys enjoyed the summit. It was a great time. I know I got to talk to a lot of people out there. Not as many as I'd like to, but along with that great experience, you also get 25% off IDLE. That's a great value.
And so you can actually do full text searches. And one of the things that has been talked about a lot this year is this Google-esque search. And that is actually created by a custom query. So you would select full text here, and then there is actually an HTML form that that you would use that gives you the little picture that looks like the Google. And that is actually provided by OnBase, and they actually provide all the things you need for that. So if you do have IDLE or you are planning to get IDLE, we can give you that information to set that up.
You sure?
Yeah, I have one already set up. So right here, this one, there's several of these. These OnBase searches are all Google-esque IDLE searches. So see, I've got full text search here. Here is the HTML form that is going to come up. We selected a date range for this. So default date is going to be, it's going to just give you a date box so you can put in a date range. And then as you can see, as you select full query, this box becomes ungrayed out or available for you. So when you click on that, that's where you would determine your document type. For example, this is all the document types that are set up for full text search in this demo, but we only have a couple here at our organization that are full text searchable. So we would either do them individually, like say this one is AP, and as you can see, it's only the AP document types. So our Google search is actually set up. We have two separate ones for each of our document types because they are very different data. So obviously it makes more sense to separate them. And then, so you can add retrieval keywords if you want. You don't have to. And then you can add the columns that you want to, this is going to sort off document date. This is going to display these columns for you. And then you can also filter by columns if you want to. So in the FIC client, if I go ahead and I pull up my custom query and I grab the OnBase search, you can see it kind of has that Google-esque look. And I can put in, let's say I'm going to put in the word test, for example, and I'm going to click search. Come on.
And her VM is going to churn away a little bit here.
Well, and then here's that date field that we had set up. I'm not sure why it's not working. It worked for me yesterday. Gotta love that. APO. All right. Well, for some reason, I must have a service stopped, is what I'm thinking, for the OnBase here. So we'll come back to that. But so here's like the demo one that I set up was just for the AP invoice, and it's going to be the last, I grabbed the last 90 days. So as you can see, it put in the dates of the last 90 days automatically. I didn't put them in. And if I click find, I can see I have 2 documents out there. So, and then I can pull them up. Now, with my demo search, I did not have any columns to sort on. If I did, those column headings come across the top, and I could click on them to sort by those documents. So if I wanted to, for example, we'll look at Boone Electric. You can see there's columns here. And here I want to sort off document date, so I've got the oldest at the top and the most recent at the bottom.
You can see how the interface, the search interface for that query is way, way improved over our homely old doc retrieval panel.
Exactly. And when I get to the Unity demo, you will see that they have taken this whole allowing us to column filter to a whole different level and on the document retrieval. So back to the slides.
Back to the slides. All right. Thanks, Jen.
No problem.
All right, so we're going to jump into the second section here. It's going to be real quick. Called Through the Looking Glass, just trying to inspect your OnBase system with the basic built-in reports that come with every OnBase install. OnBase has basic built-in reporting capability through the transaction logs and the scanning logs. You can actually get some fairly good insight into what your users are doing inside your OnBase system. It's not the be-all, end-all of OnBase reporting. I mean, that's what report services are for. and it's not automated at all, which again, report services is good for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to cover just a few quick reports that I think you'll probably find pretty useful. Platter management reports, so you can find and fix any platter management errors before they happen or before they get really bad and your users start calling you saying, I can't get to my documents. Document creation and deletion reports help you track down how much your system is being utilized each month. And then the workflow log is a good way of keeping tabs on how much your users are utilizing workflow. Maybe you should get a couple more workflow licenses. Maybe you're not utilizing workflow to its full potential. And again, the scanning logs are really great for keeping tabs on all of your users who are scanning, be it in the thick client disconnected scanning or Unity batch scanning. Anytime it hits a scan queue, it gets logged in the scanning log. So we'll start with the transaction log reports, and this includes the the three that I just mentioned that I totally blanked on.
Platter management,
document create delete report, and the workflow log. You can find these in the client. They're under the admin menu in transaction logs. You go into create report, and you get a whole bunch of options. Make sure there's the cursor. This drop down up here, which is your the transaction log you want to look at. In this case, we're looking at document history, and you would select document create delete. Put in a date range. Definitely a good idea to put in a date range. You can bring your database server to a crawl if you don't put in a date range here. It's going to go through and it's going to read your transaction log table just with a table scan. It's going to be bad. So put in your date range, select the type of report you want to see, and then you can click on create report. It'll actually save it as a sys transaction log report. You can view it later. It'll get keywords, document date. It'll be a searchable document in OnBase after that. So it's really handy for keeping tabs on things. When your manager wants to know, did you check that report? Yes, it did. Here it is. This is also where you would set your workflow log report. It's in this drop down up here, transaction log. Get your workflow log report from there, and also the create delete report and the platter management report are all in this transaction log dialog. There's a lot of reports in here you can dig through and play around. You can get a lot of data out of your system with not a lot of time invested. You don't have to write a single line of SQL, and you can really inspect a lot of what's going on in your OnBase system. The other thing I wanted to touch on quickly is scanning reports. Scanning reports are in a different area. Same menu, admin menu, go to scanning reports and generate reports. And this will run through your scan queues and look at who scanned in by batch, your user scanning, document creation, batch date summary, document type, like how many document types are you scanning in? Are you generally only scanning in one document type when you should be scanning in 5? Are your users not selecting the right document type? So you can pick the reports you want to run at the top. You have 5 reports. Then pick the queues that you want to run those reports on, and you can pick multiple queues with control-click. And then, again, set your date range or you're going to kill your database server. If you're troubleshooting and you know a specific batch range you want to look at, you can enter a batch range, but you don't have to. It's optional. And then click on Create Report. OnBase will go through and create your reports for those 5 report categories. And again, they'll show up as a sys scanning report. And you can read them. You can purge them, you can search them. They just show up as a normal OnBase document. They offer some really good insight on what kind of scanning activity is going on in your system. So unfortunately, real basic, because we've got to move on to our bigger topic, which is approaching Unity. Let's getting started with the Unity client. Before Jen takes over again with her demo, I wanted to quickly touch on how Unity differs, especially from, for example, the thick client. It's not so much different than the web client, but it's quite a bit different than the thick client. Back in the good old days, you had your thick client, and it just talked to your database and file server, your database server, your disk groups directly. You have to set up an ODBC connection and make sure you've got a UNC path that's accessible. on a hidden share, make sure your permissions are set correctly and all that garbage. But now, those are the bad old days, and nowadays we have an application server, and that does the talking for us. And we can go ahead and we can secure our disk groups, and we can hide them, and the database is only being talked to by the app server mostly. And the app server then brokers information to your core-based workflow, your disconnected scanning clients, your web server with all of your web clients, and report services, and a few other things, application enabler, and a couple other things like that. It's really a powerful system. And added to that, now we have the Unity client. So the Unity client talks to your app server, which then talks to your database and disk groups. Why would that be an advantage? Well, you can serve a whole bunch of Unity clients off of that one app server. You can devote some very powerful hardware to it, and it'll take care of a lot of the heavy lifting of the Unity client. This means that mostly it's just interface data going back and forth between the client and the application server. So you can run Unity client over not so perfect network links, and it'll perform pretty well, generally speaking. But yeah, there's definitely latency. You're not connecting directly to the database server and the disk groups anymore as you were with the thick client. But it's not terrible. It's not. We're not talking like web client over a modem here. It's pretty responsive, and it has a lot more features than the web client. But
that's where you need to take into account making very large queries, because if you are doing very large queries, you are using a lot more bandwidth to bring that data back. All right.
I'm going to go ahead and show off that Unity client.
Yep. All right. So here's our lovely thick client and our config. But so here is our Unity client, and as you can see, the big thing that's with the Unity client is this lovely toolbar at the top, which kind of, if you have Windows products, you can see is very similar to the 2010 Microsoft toolbar. So they took those ideologies and the way that was set up, and the Unity client is a very similar look and feel. So you have a couple of tabs here across the top that give you some more options, and then all of your options through here. Now, the couple things that are new with the Unity client is, first of all, you get the option for, this is called a home page. And as you can see here, I added our website to this home page. So you could add your company's website or websites that maybe we here use ADP. And maybe you put your payroll system, if you have a link to that portal, or those things on here.
Department intranet.
Yep. Exactly. Or, so that your users from this one page can get to multiple things on the internet. And you can go ahead through here, and you can go ahead and add those. So
where's here? How do you add them?
Well, if you want to add them, if the user wants to add them, they can add them from this little gear here. But if you want to add them to everybody so they show up the same, it has to be added to the configuration file for the Unity client.
Which you can push out with one click.
Yep, you can push that out with quick once deployment, or you can install it manually. Say if you're using Citrix, you'd install it manually on your Citrix boxes, and then you would just configure that configuration file to have all the pages you want in it. The other thing that they give, well, as you can see up here, we've got home, personal page, and favorites. These are all new options and wonderful things that makes your users' lives easier. So under personal pages, as you can see, when we came in before, personal pages was my home page. So when we came in, it went straight to my personal page. So a personal page allows people to add things that they access all the time.
Components of the Unity client.
Yes. So like you can see, this icon here is a workflow. And you can see in this PO invoice review, there's 0 documents in there. In the hire or reject workflow queue that this person has access to, there's 1. In the benefit change, there is 2. And then that will change based off when things move through the system.
So you have an at-a-glance look. You have an at-a-glance look at the workflows that you use most often.
Yep. And as you can see, you can also do, this is a custom query, AP document search. This is a customer file, so this is a folder. And this here is a form, an HR benefit change request form. So depending on what you access, if you create a certain form, maybe you're in HR and you create a new employee form all the time, you maybe that would be something for you to add to your personal page. Now, favorites are just a little bit different. They let you add different layouts. So, like this one has got the custom queries. So this is all the custom queries I have access to, versus adding the one custom query to the personal page that I always access. So if I'm going to the custom query page to look at all the custom queries all the time, maybe that would be a great thing for your favorites. And then they do allow you to manage those, so you can rename them, you can remove them. Rename and delete are the only options you really have right now, although I know working with some of my customers, we've put in some enhancement requests to add some functionality to that because their users use them all the time. But as you can see, we've got retrieval, file cabinets, all the things you saw in the Get Client, envelopes. You've got your upload here, your workflow, reading groups if you're using that. Batch scanning, and document tracking. So there's a bunch of different options. And if we go ahead and just do a retrieval, I'm just going to bring up credit memos, and I'm just going to bring up the whole list. Okay, we only have one in there. So let's bring up AV checks. Okay, so like I was saying before, the added advantage is that you can now sort, as you can see with this little arrow right here, you can sort these documents however you want. And there's, you can filter by last month, last year, today, and it allows you to do it straight from the Retrieval interface, which is wonderful, and much easier than having to create a custom query to do all that for you. Another thing with of course I probably picked one that doesn't have one, but if there was a note, you would see a little, let's see here, let's just add a note. So now, when I bring up the document, you can see right on the top that there is one note. And another nice thing is that you're, up here across the top, you've got your keywords, which brings your keyword panel over here to the left, or to the right, I'm sorry. And you have cross-references. So if this is cross-referencing, you see it references other documents, you can see those documents here. So in the past, when you set up cross-references, you possibly had to click on the upper half of the document or the lower half or these kind of things. So what's really nice now is that they're all related in one area. All you have to do is click the button. So you can re-index from here, you can delete from here. Here's your send to options if you want to email this or print this or put it as a file on your desktop. So all of the options that you had in the Fit Client are here. They're just all in this ribbon across the top, which is very convenient and very easy to use. One more thing I wanted to mention before we close this out is user options are set here in this little O up here in the left-hand corner, user options. So this is where you can set, confirm if you want people to have to confirm their log off, if you want to be notified if you get new mail. If they are going to image, this is where you would set up their imaging. If they are going to scan documents, here's your options under upload if you wanted to delete after upload, if you wanted to give you a preview of the imported document. So these are all things that can be, that the users, here's the retrieval date options. So these are all things that users can set up themselves and are set for them, and then they can use the system. The user options, kind of like the fit client.
Show once more where, I always forget that's there. You can always set those user options in the Unity client.
Yep, they're right up here under the little O and under user options.
All right.
So, and that's where you would also close this window if you wanted to close out the client. So
remember,
let's get back to the demo.
That doesn't quit the client though.
No, that
remember,
is just close. It did not say exit.
Remember, you always have to close it or exit it from the system tray if you want to completely quit out of the Unity client. So that should cover most of the major differences between Unity and the other clients. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get enough time to really take a really in-depth look at it. Maybe we'll do that again. We'll see how much feedback we get for this. As always, our blog is at blog.naviant-inc.com. And of course, you can join the Hyland community at hyland.com/community. If we have any questions, we will be taking questions in the chat.
We don't have any right now.
Looks like no questions so far. It's always nice to open up the webinar panel and see that everyone hasn't left already. It's a good stop to the arm there.
Somebody's asking for, can I have those links? Sure. Are we talking about, if you're talking about the blog links and the community link, you can actually get to communities if you Google Hyland Community. And if you go to our website, you can get directly to our blog page from our website also. If you go to Naviant-Inc.com, on the very top, it'll say to join our blog.
Absolutely. I can throw the previous webinar's link back up there at the end of the presentation for sure.
All right. So that's the only question we had, so we will...
Let's give them a couple more minutes. Anybody else have any questions? Come on, you guys can ask a question. You don't even have to file a support ticket. No? Okay.
All right, well, finish this up then.
Yep, so we are currently on OnBase 13 SP1. Core services is up to 1301.120. Yeah, they're definitely doing some iteration. I think it's probably time for us to upgrade our internal system.
Yep.
We're a little behind. Yep, Copax Capture 10 SP2 hasn't changed. VRS Elite still 5.1, and Teleforms is still 10.6. So as always, you can get to us, PSG, at Naviant Solution Support, 1-800-686-8789, or email us at support@navient-inc.com. And of course, you're always invited to use the Naviant live chat. If you go to the customer portal page on navient-inc.com, you'll see this little orange blob down there about halfway down the page. It says live support, ask a question. If we're online, that will tell you. You just click that and you'll IM right into us. One of us will take your question right away. All right, the next webinar is in January.
Yep, and we at this point don't have any topics, so if you have something that you'd like us to highlight, please definitely take the survey at the end of the webinar.
Absolutely.
And you can also email us those suggestions to support@navient-inc.com.
Absolutely. And coming in December, we've got an OnBase Solutions highlight with Guy Schrader. He will be showing you how to use advanced capture to automatically index your forms based on templates It's going to be a great presentation. That is December 18th. So make sure you watch for that. And if we've got nothing else, that is it.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next webinar.
Absolutely. You guys have a great day, and
yep.
we'll
And
talk
have a
to
great
you.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Absolutely. We'll see you in January, maybe December.